and we have a fun episode for you. F as in fun, F as in fintech, financial services, and banking. We are continuing the conversation from yesterday. We spoke about what was happening in the fintech and blockchain industry, and today we're continuing again that discussion, looking deeper at the financial space. We're looking at financial services, we're talking about banking, we're talking about payments. We're looking at the entire picture globally as to what's happening as things are shifting and shaping in these incredibly important industries that impact all of us, from a consumer all the way through to the enterprise and even our infrastructure. We spoke a little bit yesterday about how this is one of the best times ever to get into this industry, as both on the enterprise side and at a government level, all are focused on redesigning these infrastructures, re-looking at how the financial services industry are going to be affected, laying a foundation for not just the decade, but decades ahead, as we look at how technology is converging faster than ever as we move into 2021. So a lot to talk about today, as you can see, and even more exciting headlines that have come out in just the 24 hours since our earlier talks on this. But we are going to hold all that to get started and introduce each and every one of our guests. But before we do, you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, make sure you click subscribe. If you are an investor who would like to be on a show like today, do reach out to the LA Token team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right set of investors for you to join on a topic, industry, or region around the world that best suits your knowledge, to open up your thoughts and insights on what's happening in these areas. But entrepreneurs, this is not just a show about and for investors. This is also an opportunity for you. As we've mentioned before, we're on that Q4 last minute sprint towards the end of the year, but we're looking to the year ahead. This is the opportunity for you to get in front of investors, to start pitching your business, selling your service, and getting out what you are building. There is a virtual stage here at VCTV just for you to get up and do just that, to pitch us as investors focused on your particular industry, along with pitching to our entire live audience as well. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we would love to find the right opportunity and set of investors for you. With that being said, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are going to get ahead and get started. So first up, welcome Alberto to VCTV here today. As we said, we're talking about fintech, financial services, and banking. But with that, a little intro and a little background for everybody out there who may not know you.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So my name is Alberto Navarro. I'm based in Mexico City, and I'm head of product of fintech here in Mexico. It's called Arcangeles.com. It's an equity crowdfunding platform focused in promoting and selling and upselling startups, technology startups that are currently solving community problems, society problems, things that will make society better, allowing and democratizing access to invest in this kind of startups to all people in Mexico. So it's Arcangeles, where everybody can invest. Crowdfunding has been a major trend in the last years, and what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish here, is to join this system of democratizing together with blockchain and together with more fintech to really put some steroids into the industry and really help people in Mexico and Latin America keep on investing and keep on creating better portfolios for a more healthy financial life.
Love it. And we've talked a lot around this topic and Latin America in general, or LATAM, on how much opportunity there is around the financial services sector. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that here as we go. But first up, or next up, Lewis, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background.
You know, I love being here, Kyle. I come here for you. You know, Kyle's one of the best hosts you're gonna have on what, not only VCTV but in general. Got to get you more gigs, buddy. But anyway, just to give a little the skinny on me, I've been involved in finance for over 25 years, from investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, private equity. You know, this topic right here is in my wheelhouse, and we're going to speak a lot about it. There's a lot of advances that are going on. I am the managing partner of FJA Partners, and we're involved in AI, AR, VR, blockchain, and basically we're looking to do a lot of great things. And you know, for me personally, I speak to everyone, but that's my intro.
I love it. And thank you very much for the kind words. Appreciate it. And also welcome back. And Juan, welcome back as well. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Yeah, so I'm Juan Bruce. My background's a mixture of design, engineering, being a founder, and venture capital. First got involved in fintech almost 2 decades ago, early on when I was at the design firm IDEO in the Silicon Valley. I've also been a venture capital consumer space, as well as specifically in the blockchain space with Enigma Capital. And right now, I'm at a combination foundry and fund called 55 Foundry and 55 Catalyst. And we work with corporate partners to build startups that capitalize on their assets and needs. And actually, we're going to be having a rebranding soon, and a new name and a new partnership with a significant management consulting and doing quite a bit of work in fintech. So that's a space that I've been spending the last couple years doing some work with some large corporate partners.
Outstanding. Early congratulations. Looking forward to the announcements as well. And to you and your partners on that. And last but not least, MME. Mark, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to see you. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Sure, Kyle. It's always a pleasure to be here and see so many friendly faces. Mark Müller-Eberstein out of the Seattle area. After a corporate career with HP and Microsoft, founded the EdgeTech Corporation 10 years ago, profitable consulting business. And what do you do with profits? You invest them. So most of my passion these days, but don't tell this our customers, is on the investment side. So I'm an active angel investor. I'm a member of the Alliance of Angels, of ACA, of the Swan Fund. And for about, as a technologist and investor, of course, blockchain and crypto is a key thing I'm looking into since 2014 at this point. Have helped a lot of companies to get on their feet, started my investment journey parallel to Vitalik building the Ethereum system, but a bunch of other projects and interesting companies in that space as well. In addition to that, I do co-manage an investor group that is exclusively focusing on blockchain. So we're all accredited angels here in the US, called Codex 3. So we're looking at long-term investments and long-term opportunities in the blockchain space.
Wonderful. And again, welcome everyone back to the show, and excited to dive into today's topic and looking at the bigger picture of finance, financial services, and banking, because this is something that, again, is so impacting of all of our lives on all sides, whether that's from the enterprise to consumers. And as I did mention, there's so much work at all levels of this, from the infrastructure all the way up again to us as end users. But I want to come to each of you and hear what you're seeing as the current state of these, because so much is changing. As I mentioned, within 24 hours of us just starting this topic yesterday, we've already had a number of headlines come out from large financial institutions of new either products, new services, or new plans that they're moving forward with. And we've had the who's who, whether it be from the traditional commerce side, or payment side, so Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and the like, who are offering new services, changing their business models, to the big banks, to, again, that governmental infrastructure that's looking at the future of their currency strategies as well. All of this is now at play. And so with that, let's, Alberto, let's come to you first. What are you seeing as the current state or the current activities around financial services from your view?
Well, I think it's a very interesting time to be in this space. You know, we were talking about before about Square getting into Bitcoin, doing a strong investment into Bitcoin. But the way I see it is that you have to be very specific in the approach that you take as a company or as an ecosystem. What do you want to tackle? Do you want to tackle fiduciary services? Do you want to tackle Bitcoin specifically? How are you going to keep Bitcoin into your balance sheets? How are you going to start managing that? Also, like, how are our payment services in the future going to be working? There was a lot of talk about blockchain as an infrastructure for all these payment services, but until we get there, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of different areas where you can still improve, right? Let's say in fiduciary services, I think banks are starting to find this convergence point with blockchain companies and with fintech companies, in terms that a lot of banks, at least in this region, they can't have all these activities, essential activities, in the cloud or in blockchains or in servers that are outside of their control or outside of their own infrastructure. And also just this shift of allowing fintech companies or blockchain companies to make these essential activities directly on a cloud or directly in other servers is a huge shift, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity for collaboration here, where banks can start like outsourcing all these kinds of activities to companies that are focusing completely on technology and focusing completely on servers and focusing completely on economies of scale and digital, right? Let's say, for example, custody of digital assets, right? If a bank wants to get into Bitcoin, it's going to be way harder for them to construct the infrastructure that they're going to need to host that or to keep that safe, to keep all these assets, not just Bitcoin, but digital tokens or tokenized assets, to keep them in a safe place, right? It's going to be like way harder for them to build this infrastructure within their own company, within their own servers. And it's going to be like way easier for them to just outsource this to companies, to fintech companies that have been focusing on this for the last 10 years. It's going to be cheaper. And then you're going to be able, I think, to create this more robust infrastructure full of collaboration and full of connected information sharing about customers and about the assets and about the transactions that you're doing, that in the end is going to create a bigger and better network that will in the end allow will bring value to the customers, to the end customers, which is what we want, right? And with this, just to end this, bringing more value to the customers, you give them better access to better services, more options, just you give them the ability to build a more tailored experience of how they interact with their banks, with their institutional banks, with newer products, with digital assets, and with all the sorts. So I think that's what we're gonna start seeing in the future. All this this way to a regulation where everybody can just work together and bring better value to the customers.
I love it. Thank you. And Louis, to you, same question. What are you seeing as the current state? You've been in this industry for a few years.
A long time, a little bit. Look, we're at an inflection point between the pandemic and between, the digital age just erupting in the financial services arena. They had this just change going on. We saw it when Citibank, they made a major investment into a fintech company. We just saw, how the transition from the old models are changing, because when you have like broker dealers, they have their clients, they were paying fees for transactional fees constantly. So they were making a lot of money. That's not around anymore. Okay. The digital age changed this. So now you have Morgan Stanley, taking out a brand name in Eaton Vance. Eaton Vance used to be the iconic brand when it came to a lot of services. Now they're now part of Morgan Stanley, the $7 billion deal. Okay. And that is just the beginning. We're going to have a lot more consolidation in the industry and banking and financial services. And it's going to be interesting because the brick and mortar banking institutions are going to have to change. They're going to incorporate machine learning into what they're doing, because the customer service part is never going to go away, but they have to try to incorporate that into what they're doing, so they can provide this any type of customer service, good customer service, to their clientele. If not, they're going to wind up losing them. They have to embrace the digital age, and I think that we're going to see more of this going forward. And now, typically, just for the audience, when you're talking about the economy, usually you have peaks and valleys. You're going up and down, and nothing goes up in a straight line. No such thing. Right now, I feel we're in a V-shaped economy. We came down because of the pandemic. We're going up, and then it's gonna taper off, and we're gonna go back into that mode again. And this is a time where all this convergence, all of this stuff that's going to happen, it's going to happen soon. And it's going to be very, very interesting. And it's going to be a fantastic time for people to learn a lot and see how the growth in that industry is going to become over the next, I say, 12 months to 24 months.
Couldn't agree more. Mark?
No, absolutely. I think Louis is on track. There's definitely going to be big changes over the next 12 to 18 months. If we're looking back from 2025 to what happened, I think we will barely recognize our world in many ways. I'm not sure if I'm as positive about the general economy. I think it's more like when we have letters, it's more about a K-shape. People that do well, companies that do very well on a global level in the technology space today will do well. What also I think will happen is there's a lot of opportunity for innovation. I think we will see new companies with new ideas coming on the stage right now. And that's exactly what we as investors also look for. We look for those companies that are going to change the new world. I think who's going to suffer is the folks that are in businesses that will not be used anymore, things like movie theaters, a lot of restaurants and entertainment industry. I think those are the things that will suffer, travel probably as well. So companies that have already been active in that space or want to innovate in that space are usually not the highest level. Finance, though, on the other hand, has always been actually one of the best areas of investor return, both traditional finance as well as new finance. Talking about blockchain investments, the enterprises we've worked with from the largest financial institutions, but also the financial arms for companies like John Deere, for example, which I didn't know before 10 years ago, how much they're investing in finance technologies actually for their customers. Blockchain has been on the top of their agenda for the last 3 years. Their partners, EY, Deloitte, Microsoft, they all have built very strong blockchain practices to leverage the optimization potential the technology can build to build trust islands for themselves and their ecosystem of suppliers, vendors, partners. So there's a lot of innovation happening in the enterprise blockchain space. One of our investment funds, advising Blockcelerate, for example, is investing heavily in the enterprise blockchain space. There are a lot of startups as well. We think in the payment systems, Latin America, Alberto made the comment, we think there's a lot of opportunity for disruption, both from about stable coins, but also the underlying financial systems that are happening there. So as an investor, very interesting times, and we're definitely looking across the board of what's possible there.
And Juan, I mean, you've been in this industry for a little bit, dating all the way back, as you said, to your days at IDEO. What are you seeing as the current state, having been in here for a little bit and now seeing things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can give you the view from a couple different areas, corporate finance and business banking, consumer, private wealth. But I'd say the really interesting thing across all of them is that, there's so much need for change and change going on that design thinking is now being applied across the kind of full spectrum of finance. Whereas if you look back 20 years ago, it was only on the consumer part, and that might be, designing a new interface on an ATM or a new website or things like that. Now you're seeing design thinking methodology hand in hand with hardcore finance people that are thinking about new derivatives, new securitization. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting parts, because you're going to see some things that are just, massively different in behind the scenes in finance. And so, when you look at the corporate finance side, I'm seeing blockchain and the crypto world having had a huge effect on how people are thinking about alternative assets and securitization. So we're working with a number of financial institutions, exchanges, insurance that are now thinking about alternative assets, securitizing revenue streams in new ways to move around how the balance sheet looks, to move around how a company looks on the public markets. We're seeing asset as a service models coming, forward, pretty, hardcore, combined with IoT and distributed ledger technology. On the consumer side, we're seeing a lot of blockchain, DLT, and wallet tech behind the scenes in ways that the consumer would never even know it was there, but that make things either more efficient or more secure. Like we have a portfolio company, Charge, that's working on payment processing with DLT technology and wallets. And to the consumer, the only thing that they would know is that they're doing a little bit more validation in an, with a secondary device like an app or a phone number validation or things like that, that would show any differences. But there's a lot of tech that blockchain and crypto people would be very familiar with going on behind the scenes. And then in private wealth, I'm seeing a move towards digitization that I had never seen before. I mean, traditionally that business was very manual, very handheld, and you're seeing a new generation of young investors that are demanding the level of digital service that you'd have in normal consumer banking, but at a much higher level.
Is that a trend you think those trends, do you think those are going to continue? I mean, when it comes to private wealth, I think that's one piece, but then also the second piece of that, technology being behind the scenes.
I think it's absolutely going to continue, right? So you're now seeing that, you know, a first wave of a lot of the technology that came about in the crypto boom, it was, people did it because they could do it, right? Not necessarily because it really strongly connected with a specific need. Now you're seeing a little bit of the reverse. And I almost think about it like the dot-com era and then the era after that. Like in the dot-com era, a lot of people did businesses because they could, but the business model wasn't quite right. And then in the Web 2.0 era, there was a lot of need-based building that then utilized that initial tech. And we're seeing the same thing all over again. So people are connecting the dots and going, oh, wait, you could do that with DLT. You could do that with a wallet. Now let's start with the problem first and build it out and not push all that tech straight in the consumer's face where they may not be comfortable adopting it quickly, but let's put it behind the scenes just to make things better.
Yeah, and to that point, Mark, and this is actually another one for you as well, Juan, and we'll come around, is, you know, back to the enterprise. You know, Mark, you mentioned John Deere investing a lot into the DLT space or blockchain space as well. Is this a trend that you're starting to see more continuing on? I personally as well have seen a lot more enterprise starting to get into this area, figuring out how the technology will play again behind the scenes around remittance or payments or invoices. What are you seeing when it comes to financial services, technology, and the enterprise that may be trends upcoming in the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, financial services have been a key driver, not only for what we call the financial industries, but for traditional industry as well, trade financing and everything that goes around it, leasing, making financing available to customers have been a key driver there. I think I often talk about the FinTech Ideas Festival. It's a conference that was happened so far twice, 2017, 2019. You had to be the CEO of one of the largest financial institutions to be invited, plus one. Speakers were like the CEO of Microsoft, IBM, and so on. And I could see the difference between 2017 and 2019 was just staggering, from the leaders of those companies barely being able to spell blockchain or distributed ledger technology to sharing of hundreds and hundreds of projects that were going on within their companies already in 2019. So I wrote a book called The Trust Technology that was the CES 2019 highlight about. It's really about, as an investor, how do you think about this? How do you think about enterprises using technology to build new ways of collaboration with their partners, with their supply chain, with their customers in a way that is more efficient and more beneficial and can be set up much, much faster. When I wrote this, I already talked about the shift from private blockchains to public blockchains. I think that's one of the most insightful things that I've learned from the IT leaders of banks. That, well, we know that we need to start to build now, it was 2016, 17, the muscle, what blockchain technology can do for us. We can do it in a secure sandbox way on Hyperledger, but we know all the innovation is happening on the public blockchain. So we have been very bullish on the Ethereum and public blockchain space for a long time. In the DeFi space, we looked at what's before it was called DeFi. We looked at the MakerDAO, for example, as one of the good examples. We're very active at monitoring what's going on. Yes, price action is crazy. Like Wi-Fi went up from 0 to 40,000, then down to 12,000. Today it's back at 16. So but it's very nascent spaces, and I can only recommend look at the long term. Figure out what are the real teams, the real technologies that are going to make a meaningful impact and create long-term value for the ecosystem participants. And I think those are the right things today.
Yeah, Juan, thank you, Mark, and coming to you. I mean, let's go one level further as well with your work. I mean, you've been, again, working with corporates for some time, but now you guys are shifting into that space. What else are you seeing as trends that the corporate world or enterprise may be looking at around the future of fintech and financial services, whether that be at DLT, whether that be at AI, or some of these other converging technologies as well that you're going to be helping them with?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a few different technologies come together, and that's digital ledger technology, AI and machine learning, and IoT. And that's enabling companies to restructure a lot of the corporate finance functions that happen right now. And I'll give you a few different examples. One, Mark just mentioned trade finance, right? You get together a coupling of IoT, so you know exactly where a product is in its, delivery from manufacturer to customer, and you're matching up the trade finance with that. As I mentioned, insurance also figures strongly in this too. So in a case like trade finance, you not only have the finance, but you're coupling it with the insurance as it's moving around the world. We have a stealth company in pharma and healthcare payments. And so you're being able to, there's a lot of focus on outcome-based medicine, especially with things arising like cell gene therapy, where you have a big, expensive treatment up front, but it should have an effect for 5 or 10 years. And you're seeing ways to monitor with IoT and blockchain systems the outcome of that and stage payments relative to that. And even then you can securitize those payments and look at having securitized revenue streams that are tokenized. Now, again, this is something where all of the blockchain stuff is really happening behind the scenes. There's a few people, that understand it's blockchain, and for the rest, it's just a solution to a corporate finance problem, right? But it would have been hard to do before because you're talking about very complex tracking of, a lot of different factors that are tied back to the revenue streams or to the financial performance of, a certain asset or a system, right? So I think those are kind of some examples of what we're seing.
Wonderful. And Alberto, to you, I want to go see if you're seeing anything else in that corporate space, but then also what's happening in Latin America. Again, it's got one of the biggest, fastest growing middle classes globally right now that is searching out for financial services or financial inclusion technologies. What are you seeing from your viewpoint, being in the region and specifically being based in Mexico City? How are you seeing this world really evolve throughout Latin America?
Thanks. Yeah, I think what Juan is saying is actually very interesting in terms of I would separate this into things, right? One is payments, and the other one would be wealth management, right? So they're focused to two different kinds of markets. Like payments is focused completely on the mass market, and I think at least in Mexico, Latin America, as he said, all these payments, all these banking services have always been very manual. You have to go to the bank, you have to stand in line, you have to wait for a cashier to attend you. And now, we're finally seeing all these people that are in marginalized regions start to get access to their smartphones, which they normally use not for banking, but for the most normal, like YouTube or social media or whatever. Finally, they are starting to see this value that they can have for financial services, right? I think there's been a big boom in neobanks and new wallets for payment systems that can give access to people of lower income that are more marginalized to more financial services, for them to finally be able to stop using cash. Now, cash has advantages and also disadvantages, right? Cash allows you to stay anonymous, and digital payments, they can also be used as a surveillance mechanism, as some conspiracy theories would say, right? But still, they are easier to use, and they are much more practical than just storing all your cash below your mattress, right? In terms of wealth management, for example, I think there's a huge shift in wealth right now in the whole Latin American region, from the baby boomers that made all of their fortunes in Latin America. They're just passing their inheritances and wealth to millennials that, as Juan said, they want to have control over their investments. They want to have control over their money, right? So all this what is hot right now, what is cold, or what can you invest in, it's all going now to directly having this on your phone, and directly having this digital, and directly having this like right on the palm of your hand, for you to decide what is the best portfolio for you at the moment, what can you buy. And for this, securitization is also very important, right? Because securitization is just making an asset digital, right? So everything that you're like right now managing directly on paper, and sending papers and having to sign them and sending them back with DHL, all this through securitization is being made much easier, right? As soon as you have an asset in digital, then you can use DLT, you can use blockchain just to send transactions, to change the property of these items just from the palm of your hand. And this is like very interesting, not just for traditional assets, you know, like real estate, but also art and yachts and stock, certificates of participation, contracts, all this. So I think what is most exciting about this is this convergence between financial services and wealth management, with also digitization of the whole industry in Latin America. You know, everything that has been happening and working with papers and with sending and with calling and with standing in line is finally shifting, evolving towards you being able to control all of these actions directly from your phone, which in the end, you know, it's not just about sending a message or communications, but actually changing property and exchanging value directly, like at any moment that you want, you know, and that's the most exciting part.
Louis, and thank you, Alberto. Louis, to you. Bringing all this together, you've been in this industry potentially just a few more years than everyone else. How is this all being seen from your viewpoint?
My viewpoint, look, fintech has been on fire for the past 3 years. I don't want to go any further than that. Fintech ETFs, they've been, I mean, compared to the S&P, they've been beating the S&P year on year, for the past 3 years. So from 30 to 40 this year, upwards of 70%, and it's interesting because you have these companies that are growing, right? Square, you see what's going on with them. They're growing. You have other fintech companies that are arising, that they're growing. The traditional banks, they're adjusting. And it's just an interesting time that we're in. And I think the innovation is going to continue to be there. And I think that blockchain, it does play a part in all of this because of what it can do. Walmart teamed up with IBM some time ago, and they created a quality assurance platform that can go and take a peach from somewhere, and they can track it all the way from the farm to the store, and they know where it is. They can guarantee the quality of what it is, and they do it in Africa. They do it in other countries. People don't see it. They don't know about it. This is behind the scenes stuff that happens. Blockchain and encryption, we utilize this, to on our proprietary encryption platforms to further make them secure. And it's really important because even with the banking institutions, okay, I don't care, your Citigroup, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, they all utilize blockchain technology internally. And it's not just, hey, we have one platform that's what we use. No, they're using dozens, hundreds to go and secure their systems and keep track, journal everything. So everything is immutable, everything is there, and they can protect the information, the data, and give their clients the assurance that, hey, you're safe with us. And again, I'm not going to get into cryptocurrency and all that stuff, but the blockchain part of it is going to be a very important part of the future of fintech, because the brick and mortar banks are going to change. Okay, the financial services, they've already changed, and they're going to continue to evolve. You're going to see a consolidation. You're going to see a convergence of technology, finance, bank. All this stuff's going to come together, and you know who's going to be the beneficiary? The people, because you're going to get things on the cheap. You're not going to go and spend, have to and pay fees out the kazoo for these services. So again, it's a process, but we're going to get there, and I see the growth happening.
Well, and as you're calling it out, I mean, we've seen tons of mergers and acquisitions in this space. I mean, Morgan Stanley just made a big announcement today as well. There's more and more consolidation, or again, mergers and acquisitions around integrating some of these either established companies bringing into a new technical driven era, or bringing in technology and platforms into the current established stack to advance it in some way, shape, or form. And with that being said, I mean,
if I can add on to this, I'm sorry, Kyle,
yeah.
but years ago, the pharmaceutical industry went through a consolidation. Okay, they went through a consolidation. You had, one company taking over another, merging with another, and that was happening. You also had it with community banks. They were doing the same thing, and they were just coming together, merging, consolidating, merging, and then all of a sudden, boom, they break apart. Same thing with AT&T and the baby bells. Same thing happened. We're going to see this convergence. Whether the break apart's going to happen later on, we don't know, but there's always a cycle of this happening anyway. Just wanted to throw that in.
No, I think it's great. Look, it happens in every industry, and right now happens to be fintech's moment or financial services moment, and it's a good time. It's probably the best time based on what you have all said thus far, and just highlighting that. Right, again, this convergence of technologies coming together. We're talking about the Internet of Things that we've seen as the promise of 10 plus years, and here we finally are. Right, we've had blockchain and some other technologies. Same thing. AI we've had for decades, as we've spoken about here previously on VCTV, and finally these are coming to the right point, and each of you are calling out why. But now let's switch to where the opportunities are. I mean, as investors, where should we be laying our bets? Where should we be looking at to start making investments to helping that next generation of companies come to light here in the decade ahead, that will be impactful, that will hit all of us as both consumers and enterprise? Alberto, let's start with you. Where are you seeing the areas of opportunity as an investor for those looking to start making their bets here in this industry?
Well, I think there's still a huge opportunity for payments in the Latin American region. We start to see all these neobanks pop up, offering better apps and better ways for people to control the final frontier, just as Africa was. There's a huge space, like a huge geographic space, right? There's around the same culture. Everybody speaks the same language. So connecting all of these people around here is a fantastic bet. I think we're seeing that with super apps like Rappi, like all these delivery apps that connect payments and that connect delivery and that connect services directly in one app. Those have been doing really well, especially in these times of the pandemic, right? But all these banks, I think in the whole Latin American region have stagnated, and they have operated traditionally in a very normal way for the last 30 years, right? And now finally we're starting to see these other options that are growing massively, right? Because people are so distributed, and connectivity is not that good, at least in roads and in territory. There's mountains, and there's there's all these kinds of things that can't allow people, that centralize all the way that countries in Latin America work into their capitals, right? And all this technology and all these new financial services have been allowing people to get the same access that people from the main cities, right? But in more marginalized areas. So that's a huge opportunity right there. And in other terms, I think what I'm seeing on DeFi, it's extremely interesting, but this is more on a global way. I think what we're seeing with Wi-Fi and with MakerDAO and all this is really interesting. But what we still need is adoption right now. So it's still an early bet. I think all the people that I know that it's not that easy to get in. It's not that easy to interact with, and it's not that easy to set everything up, to interact with the service and to farm yields and to connect with the DAO and connect with all these other mechanisms that are occurring. That it's still very mystical, I think. So driving adoption on that part, I think it's going to still take a couple of years. So it's still an early bet, but it's fantastic what we're seeing. The ways that we're creating liquidity and the way that we're recycling money and the way that we're recycling value, to reach more people and to create really decentralized financial structures and banks that people are going to be able to have access to, that people are going to be able to get a credit from, that people are going to be able to securitize new assets. That's just really, really interesting. So in terms of a bet, I think it's a huge opportunity to get into that space right now, as soon as possible, but it's going to take a while for us to be able to get value or to get a return on that investment. I think the way DeFi is working right now. I don't know, like this is me thinking, you know, but I think it's going to just it's gonna fall flat on its face at some point soon, or it's doing it right now, but it's gonna come back, as we're seeing as well, you know, like with the technology on the background, and it's gonna come back stronger. So I think it's a great opportunity to get into that right now.
I just want to
So
second
Mark,
what you just said. I think you are right. We're creating infrastructure. There's a lot of experiments and a lot of scams, by the way. So just stay away from those. But you are right. It's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about broad adoption, and that's the value and the ease of use it brings to the broader population, giving them access to features and opportunities they didn't have. I mean, that's in LATAM, that's in Asia. I think we are a long-term investor in Pundi X out of Indonesia and Singapore now, which brings access to the finance system in an easy way to people that didn't have access today. So the 80% of the global population.
And Mark, what other opportunities are you seeing as well that investors should be paying attention to, or maybe a little early, but aside from DeFi, that should be on their radar?
I think it's depending on the risk profile, but I think fintech in general, things that are optimizing and empowering more people to have access to the fintech system are usually a good bet long term. But at the end of the day, most investment decisions have to do with the teams. Do you have the right leadership? Do you have the right leadership team that you can build on for the next multiple years? It's not fly-by anonymous projects, with the exception of Bitcoin, maybe. That might have worked. But in general, it's like if you don't want to gamble, but you really want to make investment decisions, it's do your due diligence, figuring out who the people are. Do they have the credibility? Do they have the connections? Do they have the willingness and personal commitment and skin in the game to actually build something? And that's true for companies on one side like Microsoft that are providing a lot of the infrastructure we're all using today. And on the startup side, I think, as I said, I think Pundi X is a company we believe strongly in. MakerDAO, I think Rune and his team have done an outstanding job of chipping away every day on making things better. But I think we see interesting companies. We're looking at a great company from California right now. Sorry, from Canada right now. It both starts with a C and it's early morning, but from Canada right now. Now, hopefully can tell more in a little bit in a couple of months there. But so that we see the nuggets across the world, but those are people that are committed, that are doing the hard work and have a very strong customer focus.
Outstanding. Louis, to you. Where are you seeing the areas of opportunities that people should be paying attention to? Again, even if it's early days, what's on your mind?
Well, I just think that, the micro investing and micro banking space is going to be interesting. Volume. If the volume speaks, then the companies will make money. And I think when, because we see that with Robinhood, we see that with other platforms, Coinbase, so on and so forth. They allow you to go in and take $5, $10, and you make an investment. You get a piece of Apple. Wow, you know how exciting that is for someone that doesn't have any money to make a $5 investment. They have a little piece of Apple or Microsoft. It gets them involved in the conversation, and that's a good thing. We're going to see more of that with the new generation, younger people getting involved in investing. They can get educated. It's important to get educated in that space. And if you're an investor, just you're just getting into the game, learn, because you get burnt, and it happens. But I think that space is going to be interesting. I think the incorporation of blockchain into that arena is going to be big. Whether it's going to be centralized, decentralized, I don't know. But however they integrate it into it, and every system is going to be different. You're going to have stronger systems, weaker systems. You're going to have more. Yeah, and Mark made a point of it's who you know. If you get people involved in your projects, in your company that have connections, your growth will start happening quicker, as opposed to you struggling. Same thing if you're a company, you're looking to do something in government, it's better to connect with a company that has those connections so you can get in the door, as opposed to trying to do it yourself. So I think that in that space, we're going to have a lot of growth. It's going to be very interesting. I think more players are going to come into it. I think existing players are going to have little players that are going to get into it. We see that with Zelle and Venmo and stuff. And, you're going to see more of that happening, because saving people money and killing those fees is going to be critical. And that's my input on there.
Wonderful. And Juan, to you, where are you seeing those areas of opportunity that you are looking at or others should be looking at to begin placing their bets when it comes to these industries?
Yeah, well, I think, people have mentioned DeFi and payment systems, but I think those are the obvious ones, and those are the ones where, all the big VCs are battling over the best deals. But I'd actually encourage people to go to what I think are some of the less obvious problems that are coming up, and that is fintech applied to vertical specific industries where you have a lot of enterprise and B2B problems. So real estate, healthcare, energy, gaming, media rights, all of those spaces and even more, you're going to have startups that are emerging, and we're seeing making businesses more efficient, in some cases enabling micro investing by outside parties around certain parts of their businesses, and investing in very specific revenue streams that have to do with their businesses. And again, that comes back to being enabled by IoT and AI and machine learning. And so I think that those startups are going to start to become more buzzwords in the popular press in the next few years. So that's definitely, if you're looking to get on the edge, go there. In terms of the other more consumer type of things, anti-fraud systems, right, is something where, I think blockchain and DLT is going to start having a big effect. I mentioned Charge before. I mean, there's a product that can literally take, credit card fraud from like 3% to almost 0% with very little consumer friction, right? And so you're going to see things like that coming up also. And then finally, alternative asset markets. So Lewis mentioned being able to get little pieces of things. I think you're going to see a lot of this infrastructure enables assets that wouldn't have been securitized before. And a lot of things that would have been SPVs or funds start to be digitized and bring easy, fluid access to a lot more people.
I love it. Gentlemen, you're all spot on. We've seen a number of these trends. We've talked about them here on VCTV. There's some new ones that have been mentioned today, and really appreciate all the thoughts and insights. And I want to come around to everybody to make sure you get your last closing thoughts in, and where else people should be either paying attention to, knowing, or seeing where this industry is going. Because as I mentioned, 2020 is a foundational year that we are going to be building on, and not just for the next decade, but decades ahead, as so much has changed dramatically in these areas for hopefully the better. And we're going to see how that plays out in the coming years. So Alberto, to you, closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation, whether it's around today's topic and or the company as a whole?
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I think alternative assets is also an incredibly interesting space. Securitization of digital revenue streams that are usually not being used the way they could be used. It's like also a fantastic opportunity. I think like what Louis said, you have $5 and you invest them in Apple. You can invest them in stock of Apple, or you can invest it in the sales of Apple. You can invest in the revenue of Apple. So that's also a securitization that hasn't happened yet, where instead of getting the stock, you get into the revenue. You get into the sales of the AirPods, or you get into a very specific field that you want, right? So that expands the possibilities of investing way further. I think also what is going to be very interesting is this shift into open banking. You can see a lot of resistance still from traditional institutions to sharing data, because they have to keep it safe. There's very good reasons for all these institutions to keep the data safe and to keep the data, like what kind of data are you going to be able to share, and what kind of data are you going to have to keep as secret as possible, for sensitive customers or for regulatory purposes or whatnot, So the shift into open banking is going to happen together with regulators and with institutions and with fintech companies and with blockchain, to find this way, this path, this middle golden path in which all these participants can establish sharing channels, of information to, in the end, give a more tailored experience to customers, so as not to create this environment of winner takes all, and my app is better than yours, and I'm gonna start like getting all these people. Because, like, let's face it, I think bank consumers or fintech consumers normally, like, how often do you change your bank, right? How, like, a bank really has to piss you off, right, to make you very angry for you to say, okay, I'm going to close this account right here and I'm going to change over there, right? Maybe you like your credit card here, maybe you like your interest over here, maybe you like your savings account over here. So the best way is to create this fintech infrastructure together with regulators that will finally create this network of channels of sharing data and sharing information to give, in the end, the best value to the customers. So in the end, I'm very glad to have been here. I think this was a great panel. I learned so much about all these new ideas that you guys have been bringing. I'm going to look more into all the things that we talked about. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys again soon. And you can find me mostly on LinkedIn, Alberto Navarro. In Twitter, I'm also in Twitter, but I'm mostly a spectator over there. So that's my place of learning instead of my place of broadcasting thoughts. So LinkedIn, Alberto Navarro, arcangeles.com, wealth management, alternative assets. You can find me there, and we can have this conversation further. Thanks again.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alberto. Louis, to you. Closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Closing thoughts. Well, look, the fintech, financial services, everything is in flux. Everything is changing. I think that you're going to have a lot more SPACs. If people don't know what a SPAC is, it's a special purpose acquisition company. Basically, you wind up going public in an unconventional way, which is becoming more conventional now. It's an alternative to an IPO. When you have these SPACs that are coming out more so now that I've seen in the past 10 years, they're going to take these companies off the market. So now you're going to have an opportunity for private companies to build up a little bit. So as investors, the VC community, they'll have a shot. I'm in the PE community. We have a shot too to go and be a part of that growth. So it becomes very interesting. So you got to look out for these trends as they're happening. People, you can find me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on whatever. I'm all over the place. But you can find out more about me on fjpartners.com. And Kyle and the LATOKEN crew, thank you so much for making all this happen. Great panel today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Louis. Mark, to you. Closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you? Oh, Mark, you're on mute, my friend.
I got the button. I missed it. But you don't miss me at Twitter. So here's Mark M. Eberstein at Twitter. Relatively simple. You get it right. And I'll share usually relatively unfiltered of what I'm thinking about the day-to-day activities that are happening in the world, especially in the world of investment. And when I find good advice for entrepreneurs, I'll try to share it with the hashtag of entrepreneurs to make sure that people actually see it, because there's a lot of good advice out there. So advice for entrepreneurs, keep building. This is the opportunity right now. Where the world is going to change, and you can build the next billion-dollar company. Seconding, I think what Alberto said, a lot of really good things today, but especially the white space. There's so much opportunity out there. We are just at the beginning, and for companies that are delighting their customers, I think the sky is the limit. And hey, if you're on that track, talk to us, please. Here on Twitter, you reach out, and we'll take it from there for sure. And for investors, just again, do your homework, learn from decades of good investment advice of what to look for. Don't fall for the scams if you can at least avoid it. Keep yourself safe. It's a weird world out there, and make sure you're understanding your responsibility of protecting what you have, but also helping the next generation of building something cool.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark. Juan, close us out. Last closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, so I think really the most exciting thing is that you're starting to see a cultural shift in a lot of the financial institutions that were not changing for decades, even not changing culturally through the dot-com era and previous eras. And a few people mentioned that, a lot of acquisitions are happening because they have to. And those companies are being combined in, and the big old financial institutions are realizing that they want to keep that top talent. They're having to shift their culture to be more like a tech culture, which is something that just hasn't happened before and is very exciting. And then, like I said earlier, they're then integrating in things like design thinking methodology and a lot of innovation methodologies into their core business and into the thinking of their really hardcore, financial structuring brains within the companies like I've never seen before in the last 2 decades. So I think that's really exciting. That means there's a lot of opportunity in general for investors in this space because these acquisitions are going to continue to happen to keep these big old companies relevant. And so, it's been great being on the panel and enjoyed talking to everybody else here. You can find me on Twitter at jbruce, JBRUCE, and on LinkedIn, Juan Bruce. Looking forward to hearing from people.
Wonderful. And thank you all again so much for sharing your thoughts and insights. There's so much more to continue to talk about around these areas. And we will continue to have this discussion here on VCTV as things are changing so dramatically. Thank you very much, Louis. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, like our investors, and join them in sharing your thoughts and insights around technologies, industries, and regions around the world. Entrepreneurs, do reach out if you'd like to join us here on the virtual stage at VCTV to pitch us as we are focused on your industry along with our live audience. The LA Token team and or myself would be happy to find the right opportunity for you. And a big shout out to the LA Token team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I am your host, Kyle Ellicott. We will be back here in just a few minutes after a short break to talk more about what's happening in the investment world around a few new industries that we haven't yet talked about. And we'll be back in just a moment to share that with you. You can find me along with all of our investors online 24/7, 365 and on social media at Kyle Ellicott. With that, we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.